the shop. Figured it'd be a good day to tell you guys about the new small waking crank. I haven't decided exactly what to call it, but you can see the difference here. It's pretty significant. Overall reduction in size, percentage-wise, is pretty small when it comes to stuff like that. But it's 2 ounces. It's a little under 2 ounces, but it's about 2 ounces. 6 inches. This is just a tail that we've been chopping up until bait goes into production. I'm not picky. I just cut larger tails into this. But yeah, this will be cool this year. This is the standard, with toxic baits. We get a lot of people really like the Wade Hogs. They really like the Whippersnapper, the Wade 3, the Chorizo. The gill baits are always universal and fun. But also, this bait was made. I mean, this is what originally got me started with making baits to sell, or like where we actually started to have a product or whatever. But this is a universal bait. Like, this imitates it's made to imitate shiner, baby bass. The first ones we made were baby bass imitators, and then golden shiner, shad, herring, wherever you are in the country. It's kind of like a long, skinny shape, like a Senko. A Senko has a very long, universal minnow shape. In testing, in labs, bass eat that 5-inch Senko shape the most out of everything, just of an inanimate object. There's a book that's written by one of the main Berkeley scientists. I think it's called The Scientific Approach to Bass. That's a good book. It goes through all that different stuff. And reading that book kind of guides me in how I build my baits. Or, that's one of the books I've used in the past. Because it's more about, it's not only about making a lure that attracts a fish to bite it. It's also about so a fish can eat it effectively. Predator success rates in nature aren't 100%. They have to. They do a lot of work to get the meals they get. So anything that you could do to make it look like they're getting the upper hand is going to usually translate into more bites. And that could be bait shape, bait size, no fins, maybe a sleeker profile on a gill bait. All those little things I think help. So anyways, that's what kind of went into this, right? Swim baits are really being accepted by everyone these days, which they should be. There's a lot of products to support swim baits. I have a rod coming out with iRod this year. I lost a giant on it yesterday. To be honest with you, such a cool setup. Hopefully that's here soon. And it's gonna, that rod is perfect to throw all this stuff. But to get back to the waking crank, this little size in the 6-inch, translating into everyone throwing them, it's a little lighter than this snapper. Here's the snapper, no tail on it. But you can see it'll be a little longer than the snapper, definitely skinnier. But this has just been great for everyone, from guys who have been doing this for a very long time and throw the big stuff. Like, to be honest with you, like me, like I prefer to throw the Wade Hogs. I prefer to throw the larger baits, the Chorizos. Significant size difference. I love this bait, the original waking crank. And to be honest with you, it was hard to transition. Like, I didn't even really want to make the smaller baits. They're cool. But once I actually executed on this, the Snapper 2.0, upgraded the joint, and made it what it is now, it was such a cool bait. It's actually converting me into throwing the smaller stuff more often, because they're so much fun to throw. They still get the big bites. You can catch a limit. I mean, with most swim baits, you should be getting enough bites to get a limit, or you're throwing it on the wrong day. But with the bait like this, it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're in a farm pond, if you're fishing for spotted bass, smallmouth bass. Like I said, it's pretty significant, even though it's only an inch shorter and it's like a ½ ounce or, lighter. It just, the profile overall is just more universal. You could, under 2 ounces, you could throw this thing on a flipping stick. You could throw this on a deep crank rod. You could throw this on the new iRod Sniper Swim that's coming out. That's the Toxic model that I designed. So moving forward, we'll probably have different models. This year we're going to have different models of baits with different dive angles. But, it's hard to make enough as it is. So, but anyways, coming into the beginning of the year, these are the baits that never get, these don't leave my rod tips. I really don't get into these until March, April. I mean, you can, but universally, generally, you want to rock with, or I do, this bait just gets it done early in the year, cranking it down, ripping it through weeds. If you have long tapering points on your lake or any type of transition, secondary points when they start to move in, when they're up early, whether it be wind or shade or whatever reason that they're up there early in the morning, late in the evening, whatever, banging this on points and grinding it just like a square bill, whatever you will, gets plenty of bites. With this little guy, that'll be really cool to do also. I can only wait to see what fish we do. But, in the beginning of the year, if you don't have a wake and crank, jump on this. Lips, we need to get the lips cut for this. We're doing a show in a couple weeks, the Pacific Sport Boat Show, I think it's called, in Costa Mesa with Nick from the podcast. That'll be where I have an initial run of these. We're going to be selling combo packs. There'll be a limited amount of these at that show. Hand cut lips. It's a bait. Basically, they're just not CNC'd yet. And we'll try to get some tails. We're making a new tail mold. But that show, we're going to have the first versions of these available. These should be available March, April, when everybody gets out there. Get it all tightened up. If not, it just depends on when everything's finalized for production. Until then, this is a 2.5 ounce bait. You can also throw this on a conventional rod if you need to. Don't sleep on the wake crank, So now we'll have 2 models for guys that think this is a little too big. You can jump on the little guy, little Tyrese, codename Tyrese. We haven't agreed on an official moniker, but it's a wake and crank. Don't want to call it a mini or baby or a junior, it's not. So anyways, we're keeping it moving here at Toxic, trying to keep new stuff in you guys' hands. I really think this is going to be the bait of the year for Toxic. How could you lose with this, right? I've made a few smaller baits. I made an old burner shad, old burner shiner, a 3-piece. I made smaller versions of the wake and crank before. But this is actually the same exact bait shrank down. So the wake and crank master was scanned and 3D printed. So it's the exact dimensions of the full sizer, just reduced. And that was the hope, I could shrink this into a bait and it would translate into a bait, and it worked great. So it has pretty much the same action. Depends on the float rate you're using. Still probably go with size 1 hooks. I might fish size 1 and equip it with size 2's stock. We'll see how it goes. I'm getting some input from testers right now. But with Toxics and all baits, you should always just use what you want. It doesn't matter what comes on the bait. That's a weird thing that people think now. Like, if something comes on the bait, you have to leave it. Don't believe that. If somebody tells you that if you switch the hooks, it's going to mess up the action, it doesn't mess up the action. It just changes the action. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. So, I mean, I saw a kid catch a 10-pounder on a chunk of hot dog. You know, just because you think the action looks weird doesn't mean it's not going to get bites. So anyways, Waking Cranks.